Now, one of the driest places on the planet is about to experience an exceptionally rare downpour. The Sahara Desert is expected to see record amounts of rain in the next 2 weeks, with some areas of the parched desert set to receive 5 times their average rainfall for August and for September. And that could trigger flooding elsewhere in North Africa. I'm joined on the set to hear more about this by our Environment Editor Valerie Dekimpe. And Valerie, first of all, this certainly sounds unusual. Tell us why this is happening.
Well, it is a very rare weather phenomenon. The Sahara receives little to no rainfall at all every single year. And when it does rain, it's an average of 3 inches per year. And so when some parts of the region are expected to see 5 times that average, I mean, if you add that up, it sounds like it's not a lot. But in some parts, it could be years worth of rain in just a couple of days. So multiple rounds of showers and thunderstorms expected in places like Mali, Chad, Libya, Niger, Sudan, and Morocco. And so I have this map here of the Sahara Desert is what you see in yellow. And so it is normally an area of permanent high pressure. And what that means is that it prevents clouds from forming and so moisture building up. And that is what keeps the desert dry. And it sits right above this red line that you can see there. It's called the Intertropical Convergence Zone. And this area is actually very humid across this red line, very prone to heavy rain. And so usually areas characterized by very lush vegetation. And so what's happening now with this unusual weather pattern is that zone, that red line, is actually moving north. As that moves north, it's actually bringing rain to areas where usually you don't see rain at all. So we know that convergence zone is actually moving 152 miles further north into the Sahara, and air over North Africa is now holding 3 to 4 times more moisture than usual, causing rainfall.
And might this cause problems, Valerie, far beyond the Sahara itself?
Well, I mean, if you think rain over parched land, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Well, actually, it could bring pockets of flooding to places like Chad, Libya, Niger, and Algeria. And that is because sand dunes are not able to hold excess runoff. When the ground is really dry, it's almost like a hard surface, and so it can't absorb water, and that can lead to flash floods. And that's what you were seeing now, is actually footage from Sudan. Several villages have been swept by floods in the last couple of days. 31 people have died, and you can see how the ground can't really hold that water, and it's pretty much what you get, for example, when you see climate-induced droughts and really the atmosphere building up, holding a lot of moisture, followed by heavy rain, you end up getting flash floods. And so it's pretty much kind of the same phenomenon with desert rain. The ground can't hold that water.
And just finally, is climate change to blame here?
I mean, when you have unusual weather patterns, it doesn't always have, the fingerprints of climate change. You can have just unusual weather patterns. At this stage, nobody can tell if this is actually related back to climate change. The field of attribution science, which aims to link specific weather anomalies to climate change, is progressing, but you need a lot of data, you need time, and you need a lot of hindsight in order to make that claim that this is, related specifically to climate change. But it is worth looking at this in the context of climate change, because it's easy to associate climate change with heat wave, higher temperatures in parts of the world where we're not used to having those high temperatures, and kind of disregarding other kinds of extreme weather, which can be, rainfall in places like the Sahara. It doesn't necessarily cancel out the fact that we are having, climate change and global warming. And what's also quite interesting to point out is, this red line that I was talking to you about earlier, this convergence zone, the fact that it is moving north into the Sahara also helps explain why we have had a mild hurricane season north of the Atlantic, in the Atlantic Ocean, because normally tropical storms form, along this red line, and then they roll over towards the Western Africa into the Atlantic Ocean, and that's how you end up having tropical cyclones in the Atlantic. And so the fact that there's something unusual happening here. Hurricanes have gone quiet actually in the Atlantic. And so it's really important to see how interconnected all of these things are. And so when something is off in one part of the world, chances are something is also off somewhere else, and why it's so important to kind of keep this as a balance, when we talk about climate and weather phenomenons.
All right, really interesting. Thanks very much, Valerie Dekimpe, our environment editor, for us there.